Hey there, Caleb Wojcik here, and welcome to the show. In this episode, I talked to Dave Altizer, who is going by Dave Mays on the internet now, who runs a channel called Kinotika, where he talks all about camera gear and equipment. In this episode, I talked to him about some advice for transitioning from being a full-time freelancer and doing weddings into now doing YouTube full-time, what it's like to run a channel that's mainly focused on reviews. So if you run a review channel about any kind of products and any kind of niche, you'll learn a bit there too. And talking a little bit about the future of YouTube, the future of cameras, and what we see coming down the pipeline. So if you want to eventually do brand videos, grow your YouTube channel, maybe do sponsored content as an influencer, this would be a good conversation to listen to. So let's dive in. So Dave, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. This is awesome.
How did you get started into doing video stuff? Because I know you have a longer journey than most people that are doing camera gear stuff on YouTube.
Yeah, I mean, it really goes all the way back to when I was a little kid. My dad had a VHS camcorder, and when we just wanted to play around, have fun, my mom would go and do like a women's group or something. My dad and my brother and myself would just make little sketches with my action figures of Spider-Man, and my dad would edit the whole thing together, add voiceover. I come from a home where my father was actually a music producer, and he worked for himself. So he would just really encourage us to do stuff like that. And so I grew up doing that. And then when I entered high school, I was in a news group that we had at our school. And I just fell in love with the art of video and just had a ton of fun with my friends, just hanging out, making sketches.
So did you go to college and study it at all, or you kind of just hit the ground running after high school, or what were the next steps?
Well, when I was 16 years old, I actually submitted a cartoon that I made. I was experimenting with After Effects and Flash animation, and I won a contest for Nickelodeon, actually. And they flew me and my family out to Burbank. I was living in Nashville, and I saw the animation studio, and that was the prize of this competition. And that really just helped me feel like this is what I want to do. So I actually was going down a path of pursuing animation. And so I started studying graphic design and fine art to eventually go to either Savannah College of Art and Design or Cal Arts here in California. But halfway through college, I started shooting weddings, and that's because the 5D Mark II came out. A friend of mine started shooting weddings, and about halfway through college, I was at a smaller school, so I wasn't spending all my money in art school yet. I was like, you know what? I'm really loving this whole video thing. Let's go all in on it. So I actually dropped out of college and didn't pursue the animation thing and kind of fell in love with video because the 5D Mark II kind of just revolutionized everything. That was back in 2009, 2010.
So how many years did you do that? Did you do wedding filmmaking and that sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, since I really stopped a year ago. So it's been a long journey of doing a lot of weddings. I've calculated it. We've done like around 300 weddings over the last, 8 years. So 6 years or whatever. So like, it's really kind of insane. My friend Jeffrey Holland had a company called Full Frame Cinema, which was unique at the time because the 5D was out.
Yeah.
But now it's like, oh, that's funny. And he hired me to be on his team and shoot videos and edit. And he really kind of took me under his wing and taught me the professional side. I always made goofy videos with my dad's camcorder with my friends, but it was my friend Jeffrey who really kind of poured into me and taught me about aperture and exposure and composition and things like that. And honestly, shooting weddings was one of the best schooling experiences for me.
Why?
Because every week we were shooting something and it was the same storyline every week. And it really helped me learn how to tell a story and get creative because it was the exact same story. You have two people who aren't married. They're getting ready. They're all excited. And then they get married. And then there's a big party after. So the entire storyline is always written at the beginning of the day. I know where it's headed and I know where it's going. Although a friend of mine always says that, like, there's a chance that they will stop. And he shot a wedding once that, didn't happen. Thankfully, that never happened to me. But so exercising the skill set of filming the same storyline every week, week after week after week, and then learning how to edit that and make that creative and not getting bored with it and trying to just spice things up and looking at, at the time, Still Motion and Joe Simon were kind of the people that we really looked up to, who were in that space, and we were, inspired by them. And we did same day edits, so like we would actually edit a piece during the reception and show that to the guests, and that was an adrenaline rush that I really enjoyed.
Any horror stories from that of computer failures or anything like that? That was always my concern of the few weddings I shot. Like it takes forever to edit a wedding to me because there's so many clips, so many moments. And so what did you do to kind of prep to be ready for that? Mm-hmm. And then do you have any stories of when like your export failed or something like that?
There was no horror stories because typically it was a surprise to the couple. So that was always our kind of security blanket. We just wouldn't do it if it didn't work out and just wouldn't tell them or whatever. But there were times where they literally put it in the package, like they paid for it. And so in that sense, we would actually have a full-time editor that was sitting there editing all day. And that really helped. And we would pre-plan our music and things like that. But honestly, I think at a certain point I realized that weddings are a consumer product. Like this video is for a consumer audience. It's not a filmmaker audience. And so to be completely honest, like if the couple is in it and they look good and there's some shallow depth of field and a couple slider shots, like they're going to be freaking thrilled. So that's the thing that we found over and over. Like we look at our work and it's like, oh man, this is so lame. It's the same stuff. But to them, it's like, this is my family. These are the most important people to me. And that's my spouse.
And they haven't seen the last 50 that you did.
Exactly.
I mean, they might have seen some of your portfolio, but it's not them. And so when they view it, then they have a different kind of mindset towards it.
Yeah.
So you feel like you cut your teeth a little bit?
Totally.
Doing that? I felt like when I started doing weddings or documentary stuff, you have to get it right because it's happening one time.
Exactly.
And so you get really good with your camera and the button layouts and changing settings and figuring out how to work in different lighting conditions. Do you feel the same thing? So now if you just are going to film a quick YouTube video or what have you, it's more like memory based?
Absolutely. That's one of the things that I love about what I'm doing now is anytime I get a new camera to review, it really takes me a couple seconds to just kind of figure it out, Every camera manufacturer has a different layout and a different menu system, and the menu systems can get annoying because it's like, where's the thing that I know is here? But honestly, at the end of the day, there's a shutter speed, there's an ISO, there's a white balance, and then there's frame rates. It's pretty much the same all the way through. And and it got so, I don't know if I want to say bad. We were so into the wedding world that like my friends who I was working with, we were so comfortable with it, and it was such a breeze for us to do that we would have just total personal conversations as we're working. And we had to learn to like be more in work mode, but it was pretty funny because I would be listening back when I was editing and hearing our conversations, and like she's putting on her dress for the first time and I'm like literally talking about like what happened last night with my friend or whatever. And it's so funny because it's like, they can't get the raw footage of this because sometimes we might make fun of something that's happening in the moment. And like, it's just not very professional, but it was so much fun. It was like, oh, sweet. I can't wait to see my best friends and hang out. Oh, and we're shooting a wedding too, but whatever, that'll be easy,
Yeah. Yeah. How did you transition out of that then? How did you go from doing the weddings, getting burnt out into what you're doing now?
Yeah, well, I actually had a Vimeo staff pick when I was 20 years old. And anybody who's not familiar with Vimeo, it's definitely not what it used to be. But back in like 2010, 2011, if you had a Vimeo staff pick, like that was kind of a calling card in a lot of ways. And basically what happened is I made a little mini documentary about my great uncle. He actually lives here in Long Beach, California. He's now in his upper 80s, but he was in his early 80s when I shot it. And it was just an interview with him. He's the most eccentric, creative guy. He makes pottery in different shapes and designs. He's an artist, and he's a ex-chemistry teacher back, in the old days. And he's just such a goofy guy, and he's always just been our crazy uncle, And I was like, hey, Bobby, I want to just film something for the family. Like, let's do something and just tell your story. And I put the thing together, shot on my 7D with a 24 millimeter prime from Canon. And that was the only lens I had and the only camera I had at the time. And I put it out there. I tweeted it to Philip Bloom, who, again, in 2010, 2011, he was like the top shot dude at the time.
Yeah.
He retweeted the video and he was like, great video, shot on the 7D. And like immediately it just blew up.
Picked up steam. Yeah.
It really, I got like 400,000 views in like a week, and that's on Vimeo, which is huge. And I had no following whatsoever and got a staff pick. So that moment was amazing. But what was the kind of turning point for me was I got a call out of the blue from a number in London, and it was an unrecognized number. And I answered it, and it was like, hey, I'm so-and-so producer for Google. We want to hire you to do a commercial. We saw your video. We're talking about it in staff meetings, and we really like the video that you made. We want to essentially copy it and do a series of commercials. Would you be interested in directing it? He didn't know that I was a 20-year-old with zero experience. So he's like, you know what? Just do a treatment, and we'll consider it. There's a couple other directors. We'll let you know. So
you Googled treatment.
Yeah, I had no idea what treatment was.
Yeah.
I had a connection to a guy named Seth Worley because I was living in Nashville, and one of my good friends was friends with him. And so that was my opportunity. I was like, hey, man, we kind of know each other. I know some of your friends. I know your brother. Would you be willing to meet me for coffee? I need help. He's a big-time director, works with the Red Giant. Just amazing, talented filmmaker.
I think he's one of the funniest people on the internet.
I freaking love Seth Worley. Yeah. I love him so much. He has a great company called Plot Devices now that he's doing. But anyways, he met with me and he basically helped me, kind of held my hand through the process of making a treatment. And that moment was great. I didn't get the gig. There was 5 other directors. It was down between me and another guy that lived in London who had 30 years of experience. They picked him. The producer's like, we went with him. That was the wise decision for us. But I want you to know we were real impressed with your treatment. Best of luck to you. And that moment for me was like, wow, I need to take myself seriously. Like, I'm a director now, or whatever. I never thought of myself I never called myself a filmmaker or a director. Mm-hmm. I never went to film school, so I wasn't really like in that kind of world and didn't have that type of internal view on myself. And so I started doing music videos and working with Seth. He started bringing me on and helping him shoot stuff, and even just being a PA, like being on set. That was a big, big deal for me to just see how productions are made. And then to answer your question, I kind of went all around the whole thing there, the whole story. But it was when I saw Casey Neistat about 3 years ago that I realized, like, maybe I should stop trying to climb this traditional ladder of make a project, try to meet with a producer, try to land a deal with a music video thing. And I was like, why don't I just start a channel? Like, this is the Wild West of, like, this is literally what SoundCloud did for music for video people. Like, Skrillex is winning, Grammys now, and he's just a guy that makes music on a laptop because of SoundCloud. And now we're living in a time where filmmakers can do this too on YouTube. You just kind of have to learn the YouTube language. So I started a channel, and another part of my story too that I didn't mention is I was actually a professional magician, like an illusionist for 6 years when I was 14, and then kind of, into my early 20s. That's actually how I met my wife. She was a hostess at a restaurant I was performing at. That's a whole nother aspect of my career and my life. I wanted to be like David Blaine or something like that. Mm-hmm. And I was always torn between the two talents of, like, performing on stage is great, but then making videos is also great. And I was actually mentored by a great magician. His name's Brock Gill. He's one of the top Christian illusionists, performs in front of thousands of people with DC Talk, Toby Mac, Newsboys, all these kind of Christian artists. And he told me, he was like, Dave, you should probably do video. Like, it's hard to make a living doing magic. And I was like, okay. He was my magic mentor, and he told me not to do it. Mm-hmm. So that's another aspect of the story. But to bring that back to the YouTube part, like, I have this skill set of over 10,000 hours of doing magic, and then 10,000 hours of experience doing video. So how can I blend these two together to become like an ultimate skill set or whatever? So I was like, when I saw Casey Neistat, I was like, he's a triple threat. He's an editor. He's a quadruple threat: editor, cinematographer, director, actor, and he does all of it, right? And I was like, I can do that too, because I've shot videos. I've been a DP before, directed stuff, and I was a performer on stage, so I know how to like engage an audience. And the last aspect of that for me was just learning. Okay, I guess there are parts of YouTube that it's a kind of like a genre. You have to engage your audience. It's not just a outward, like, here's my stuff and watch it. It's a dialogue between the people watching. So anyways, that's how I started. It was just that realization of like, these two skills I have, performing and video, merged together, YouTuber.
And so what were some of those first videos you made for YouTube, and how did that get you into doing what you do now?
Yeah, the first kind of video that kind of hit for me, and I say hit, I had 0 subscribers essentially, and I got a couple thousand views, but to me that was a big deal, was a video titled, "Should I Get a Canon 80D in 2017? That was can you believe that people are still shooting on that camera in 2019, by the way? Good grief. They need to update that camera.
Maybe the 90D will come out or something. Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah.
You could still do a video titled that same title in 2019,
it would still do well.
And it would still do well. But yeah, it was quirky. I did a lot of these goofy jump cuts, and I was tired of working for clients and being put in a box, because like in my head, I see things the way I want it to be made, but then it's like, yeah, that's not funny. Like, that's not good. Cut that out, cut that out, cut that out. And I was like, you know what? This is my thing. I'm just going to go all out, use the weirdest music I can find, do the weirdest jump cuts. Like, any awkward moment that I have, I'm going to just accentuate
You're going to highlight it, not edit it out. Yeah.
Yeah. And I personally really enjoy people like H3 Productions, Ethan Klein, and Jack's Films, like just these quirky kind of Monty Python-ish comedy style. Tim and Eric, awesome show, great job. That's like one of my favorite shows ever. So that's totally my sense of humor. I just went all out with it. And that video really hit. And what was crazy was, after a couple of weeks, I got an email from a company called Kinotika, and this guy named Tim Levin, who lives in Hong Kong, sent me an email just cold and was like, "Hey, we love your channel, we love your personality. We're looking for a host to host our channel. Would you be interested?" And of course I was interested, because I wanted to stop shooting weddings, like with a passion. I wanted to get out of that. I was like, sure, this doesn't seem real, but okay. And sure enough, we Skyped, totally legit, totally chill guy, speaks great English,
Yeah.
And he ended up hiring me to be the host of the show Kinotika, which I'm still currently doing. And, contractually, as the channel grows, my income grows and whatnot. So it's a really great thing, because I'm a married man with a son, and I'm not fully relying on YouTube AdSense or affiliate links to pay my bills. So,
but in a way, YouTube is paying.
Yeah.
So it's like
ironically,
having a company that wanted to build a presence, because they how do they make money from it? They sell camera gear and equipment and stuff?
No, it's just a YouTube channel right now. We're not profiting. So at this point, we're at 50,000 subscribers, and the goal this year is to break even. So
gotcha.
I'm getting paid, and then my shooter editor, Connor, is Connor.
Your shredder?
My shredder. My shooter editor, Connor McCaskill, is also working with me full time. We pay for a studio space, which also happens to be Connor's living room in his apartment. And so we have to make a certain amount to kind of break even. And that's our goal this year. And I noticed that as soon as we hit 50,000 subscribers, it's like the floodgates opened up, and we started getting emails. It was kind of like a calling card. This year we went to CES, and we're just like, "Hi, we're a YouTube channel. We have 50,000 subscribers." Like, "Oh, here, do you want this?"
Yeah.
It's interesting how the influencer world is working these days. Like, it seems to be, for companies, like the best way to market.
Yeah, it's got to be a cheap way, because usually they just have to give product, and sometimes not even have to pay the person. And then these people have trust built up with their audience. They built over years.
Yep.
And they're already experts in the things. And I've been thinking about this a lot with with SwitchPod, like having my own physical product that I'm trying to get in front of other audiences that would be interested in it. It's how can I best do that? And it's usually through an influencer, but I want them to not just do it for money. I want to like make something that they like.
Exactly.
Then they just end up talking about it. So it's like, it's a hard dynamic to play when they have the audience and you are going to gain a lot from being in front of their audience. So it's always a interesting.
Yeah, but from my perspective, like for your product, and of course you're my friend, so take all this with a grain of salt. I'm not totally biased. I'm biased because I love you, but I genuinely love the product. And if that's the case, like even though the product costs $50 and like my time is worth more than $50, my audience is going to enjoy that video, and you know I'm going to be genuine about it. You know, so it's funny because it is like it would be nice to get paid instead of just receive a free gimbal that's worth $100, but it's also like if it's a good gimbal and my audience would be interested in it, and I could make a small amount of money off of affiliate links, like why not? You know, it is worth it.
Yeah.
You know?
Let's talk about that. A company sends you something or emails you that they want to send you something. Do you always say yes? Do you always make a video about it? And if not, why do you say no?
Yeah, I am kind of right in the thick of that right now. I've just started receiving, 5 emails a day probably.
Because at the beginning, anytime somebody emails you to send you something for free, you're like, I made it. Like,
except for those
I'm going to get like a free computer mouse and I'm just going to live off that money for a while.
Here's an iPhone lapel mic or
so many of those.
Or a pink, green, and blue headphone kit. I just ignored those, for the last couple of years. But now, like, companies like Atomos are reaching out, and we just did a Sony event yesterday. So like, it's starting to get cool, which is really fun. I just, I don't know how to answer that because half the time I do want to say yes, because if it's a free $300 headphone kit, like I want it, but they expect a video and I don't want to be shady and just say yes and get the free thing and not make the video. That would be terrible. So yeah, it's just, you gotta be creative with like, okay, if, for example, like I've gotten a couple emails about Mac related accessories, like a charger accessory, a headphone, like a stand for a MacBook. And I was like, this is a one video about cool accessories for your Mac. And I just used 4 or 5 different things. So like, I'm not making one video about a mouse pad, but I'm making one video about 5 products that kind of relate to each other. I think if you get creative about it, you could work with a lot of people. If they're okay with it, you kind of have to be upfront with it. I've gotten some emails was like, can you do a blog post and take pictures and do a video review and have it in the next 2 weeks? It's like, no. If you want to pay me $5,000 maybe, but like, I know you're not going to do that. So
yeah. Where does honesty and being okay saying negative things about a review, what kind of thought process do you put into that? Because for me, I think like if I'm going to badly review something, I think through, okay, well, this company sent me this thing for free and I need to also be honest. So maybe I just shouldn't make the video, or I should just mail the thing back or just hang on to it for too long until it's not relevant, or that's what tends to happen.
Yeah, well, the first thing that comes to mind is we have a good relationship with DJI, and they sent us the Osmo Pocket early on, and the firmware that was on it was terrible. Like the autofocus wasn't working properly. The audio quality was not good. And I talked about it in the video just because my belief is I am not serving the like companies. I'm serving my audience. So I am not here to make Canon happy at all. In fact, if they get so pissed at me that they never invite me to anything and never send me anything, like, so be it. I'll just buy the camera,
And do the review on your own.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of would suck to not be invited to cool, snazzy parties, but like at the end of the day, long term, I want the audience to trust me and believe in me. But in that case with the DJI Osmo Pocket, they were like, why did you say all that? The firmware is fixed. I'm like, that's not what you sent me. You sent me bad firmware. So they gave me the firmware that was fixed, and I made a follow-up video saying, problem solved,
Yeah.
And they were happy with that, and that's fine. And I'm sure we'll continue to work with them in the future. But I can feel for the engineers who probably were like, all right, the Osmo Pocket's out, it's great. And then they see me talk about that, and I'm using firmware from like 6 months ago. And so they know, like, in their little workshop, like, I fixed that 6 months ago. But but
they shipped it with an older firmware, or they didn't tell you to update it or something. Yeah.
It's the process of, like, this is a corporation, and the person who sent me the product is completely separate from the engineers who made it. And so the engineers watch it, and then they tell their manager, who tells his manager, and then it comes down that Kinotika said some negative things when it's not bad, but it's like, well, you didn't, there's a lot of communication there and stuff, and that's probably, that's on them, that's on DJI. So, I just try to be honest and unbiased, because that's what I want when I watch YouTube videos.
Where do you see the future or the next few years of this space that you and I live in, of like being people on YouTube that talk about camera, photo, and video equipment? Like, I feel like there's more people doing it than ever before.
It's true.
And there are more companies coming out with new cameras
every second,
every day.
Yeah. There was a new Sony last week. There's a new Olympus today.
Yeah. How do you see this progressing? Do you see like less people getting into it, or even more people doing the kinds of things that we're doing, or just kind of talking about the future of this?
Well, I do think there's going to be more of it. I think companies are starting to realize that we are valuable to them. So people like Sony are inviting us to events where we go zip lining and go up on Hummers because they want us to make videos about their products. And that's more effective than spending $1 million on marketing.
On billboards.
On billboards and whatever. So I do think companies are finally starting to learn that. Some of them are still slow to learn that, but so we'll continue to see more of it. I think just like any art form, music is always where I go, because I grew up in Nashville. My dad's a producer. And you look at like how SoundCloud democratized a lot of the music industry. A lot of up and coming hip hop artists and DJs came out of SoundCloud. And it's really just, I don't know, the good rise to the top and the bad stay down. That sounds really mean, but there's just talent shines through, and people can see the people who are genuine. It comes through the lens. I do think that we're starting to see a lot of sameness. And for us, ironically, I tell Connor all the time, we are an entertainment channel first, and then second is information. So we are totally, like, my focus for me personally is to just have an entertaining show, and the topic of the show is gear. So I'm trying to think about it differently. So I'm coming from an entertainment perspective, because I've personally seen that the people who are most entertaining tend to be the most successful, because a more consumer audience might be able to just sit down and turn it on and enjoy it while they eat a bowl of popcorn and drink a Coke. Top Gear is a great example for me. I never will ever buy any of the cars that they review, but I love watching it, and it's so entertaining. The hosts are hilarious, and the information about the car itself is fascinating to me, but I will never buy a Ferrari, like, I'm just not interested. And even if I had a ton of money, like, I don't know, I don't think I could spend that much money on a car,
But you're making the information more easily consumable, more fun to watch. Your guys' editing style in particular, with motion graphics and quick zooms on, like you said, awkward moments or like weird faces and stuff like that. And if someone took the same video recorded and went and edited it versus you guys and how you and Connor do it, it's a very different style and format and speed. And like you said, leaving in mistakes or funny looks or like sounds, or I don't know how to explain it just over audio, but if you go and watch some of Dave's videos on Kinotika, you can definitely see that. So I think that sets you apart. And I think that's just a big piece of advice for anyone that's
absolutely
trying to grow on YouTube, is find the niche of the people, the audience that already exists because they're already watching someone else's stuff.
Yeah.
And then you have to have your own spin on it. You have to do things your own way.
That's right. And this wasn't overnight. Like I said earlier, like, I was a filmmaker already for like 8 years, and then I was a magician for 6 years. So it's really just a combination of those two things. And then I recognized that YouTube is the platform I should be on. It wasn't like I started from scratch. Like a lot of YouTubers who I'm meeting who are very young, who are inspired by people like Peter McKinnon and Casey Neistat, and they want to replicate what they see because they think it's cool, and that's great, and they should. Like, that's very great way to get started, is to just replicate what you see. But I think it's important to make your own stuff, find your own voice. And it's easy to say that. I hear a lot of people say that. It's kind of a cliche now.
Yeah.
But it's, it's really valid and it's important. And a lot of that, there's a great video that was on Vimeo, got staff pick. It was a Ira Glass quote, and it's called, is it The Gap or something like that? Or,
it's like the gap between your taste and your skill.
Yeah.
And he talks about how when you get started, you might have good taste, so you know what you see is good, but you can't make it yet. And then that's the gap that makes you frustrated, that you can't quite achieve that.
Yeah.
And so there's that you're always kind of thinking about, of like, oh, well, I want it to look like this other thing, or
because it's in your head, you know what it is.
Yeah, but you can't quite make it yet. Mm-hmm. And so you end up copying people, or like doing that to try to learn how to progress a little bit.
And the only way to fix that is to do a ton of work and to fill that with just a body of work.
I want to jump back to something you said. You said that you had been doing weddings for 8 years, magic for 6 years. And so then when you started doing YouTube videos on your own, you had honed certain skills over those 10,000 hours, let's say.
I have a specific set of skills.
Exactly. And you also brought up like Peter or Casey and them having blown up on YouTube.
Yeah.
But to me, both of them have similar background stories. Of Casey's been making videos before YouTube existed, for his HBO show with his brother.
If you watch one of his
VHS tapes and editing, and
just watch one of his early HBO special videos, it's the exact same. It's a vlog. It's literally a vlog.
And so he has all those years before doing YouTube stuff.
Yep.
Peter was doing
weddings and magic.
Weddings and magic, which is very similar.
I met him at a magic conference 6 years ago.
Oh, small world.
Magic Live in Vegas. I can't wait to meet him and bring that up.
And tell him that that's when you met him.
Yeah.
So he had a lot of experience with a camera, doing edits, and not to like take anything away from either of their successes on YouTube, but I don't think people see that whole story, or they want to look for that whole story for that overnight success of blowing up on YouTube with your first video, like Peter's took off. But he had been honing his skills in private all this time until that happened.
And that's, man, it's tough to like preach that to somebody that's starting out, because it's like, oh man, that's a lot of work. 5 more years of grind. Like, I don't want to do that. And there's a chance that if, like, I didn't even think about YouTube as an option until 2 years ago. And I wish I had that click 6-7 years ago. That would have been great. As I was doing all that other stuff, to also be growing an audience on YouTube. I look at like Caleb Pike, and even you've been on it forever,
Just as a side thing for me, yeah.
Like, so I never thought about it that way until recently. So, but like you said, I mean, it's all about that experience, and there's really no such thing as an overnight success. And the ones that have it are like Ashley Simpson, who go on SNL and ruin everything because they never like honed their craft, So
switching gears a little bit to gear, actually, you get to use and test a lot of gear. That's like part of the bulk of what you guys are doing on your channel. And so you're always testing the newest cameras and everything. What piece of gear right now do you like the best? And what do you think needs to change about cameras in the next year or two for someone to basically overtake everyone else?
Yeah, this is going to date the podcast. This will really date
That's
it.
Okay.
We'll have to do another video next year, right? Right now, Nikon.
Really?
Who would have thought Nikon, right?
So what have you been shooting with?
We're shooting on the Nikon Z6.
Okay.
I'll tell you why. We bought the EOS R and the Nikon Z6 back when they were on pre-order, and we got both of them. I did some initial testing with the EOS R, coming from an A7 III, which I was using previously, and I was very disappointed because I was used to full frame 4K. I was used to the IBIS. things like that. And the Nikon gives me both of those, but it also solves some of the issues that I had with the Sony, one of them being color science. I was never fully happy with the way the color looked on the Sony, and the Nikon is much better. They have a great history of making wonderful sensors and cameras. So they were spot on with the color. Skin tones look natural. But then the kicker for me, not only with that, but the IBIS on it is much smoother. It reminds me of a Panasonic. So Connor is able to hand hold it, and it looks like a gimbal, which is great. Much better than the Sony with the stabilization. And then the final factor and the kicker that I was saying earlier is the 10-bit 4K that I'm getting out of it on the Atomos Ninja 5. It's just fabulous. I love it. The EOS R does do that as well, but not a fan of the crop.
Not stabilized.
A lot of still downsides there. Of course, Canon color science is superior. I do admit that, but I'm stoked about the future with the Nikon. They announced recently that they're doing ProRes RAW out of the HDMI into the Atomos, which is a first. Nobody's doing ProRes RAW through an HDMI cable, so it's really cool. Atomos has been working with Nikon on this. And I think it's a worthy thing to talk about and play with because nobody's really talking about it. And I think it's worth investing in because just the ProRes RAW alone, I think, is an interesting thing. And I really want to experiment with it and see how it goes with the ProRes RAW. As far as things moving forward, I really think, and that sounds crazy because we've been so in this 8-bit world now, but I really think moving forward, the Pro cameras, that even the hybrids need to be doing at least 10-bit. I don't see why not. It's possible with an Atomos. It's cheap. It's easy to do. You don't have to worry about the heating because the Atomos takes care of it.
And what 10-bit does is it gives you more colors to pull from. Yeah.
So it's literally billions more color information to go from 8-bit to 10-bit.
So if you've ever seen a background or a sky or something that's a similar color and you see the degradation of the actual lines between the different shades of blue in the sky or something. Yeah. That's typically because it's shot in 8-bit. But then there's also the other end of that, which is when you upload it to internet and it gets compressed and then they put it back into whatever format.
For me, because we do so many crops, literally our whole brand is built around cropping in every shot for comedic effect. But then we're also heavily focused on high production value. I'm ready to go 8K because I want to deliver 4K and stay in the same resolution. We just can't afford to go red yet. Yeah. So I'm excited about more resolution than 4K. Even if it's 6K, that would help to crop in and have a little bit more room so that I could deliver in 4K. I don't know. I always have gravitated towards gear that nobody else likes or uses because, I don't know, I just like being maybe different than everybody else. It's like a problem maybe. I just want to be...
You just want to be a little rebel or something and use something different.
So I would show up to... I would direct a music video, big thing, and I'd shoot it on the digital Bolex because, I love the CCD sensor. It had an organic look, looked like film. It was amazing. But my cinematographer would be like, what is this? This thing sucks. Super 16. I was like, dude, trust me, it looks great. And sure enough, the color on it looks amazing. I shot on the 1DC forever, and it was the most impractical camera in the world for a YouTuber.
Because the codec was really bad. It was just a nightmare to bring the files and edit with them. And but it looked really good.
It looked great, and I loved it. I loved how it looked. Yeah. It's still to this day, I still kind of wish I still had it. I sold it, but I just kind of this year, maybe if I can afford to own my own equipment and just hold it, I will, but in this ecosystem and doing what I do, we basically are just cycling through 2 bodies at a time. So I'll have 2 relevant bodies and we'll shoot everything on them and we'll shoot the review of one body on the other camera and then reverse that for the other one. And then we'll maybe use our favorite one the majority of the time.
Until the next one comes out.
And then we sell it and buy the next one. And I feel kind of bad about that because in a way, I'm not a practitioner anymore. I'm just a YouTuber that's talking about stuff. And I really kind of hate that. I sort of envy people who, I don't envy it, but I'm jealous of the whole you might shoot production stuff and you're a full-time YouTuber. And so you blend the two, but then it's I don't have enough time to do that because I'm just full in on YouTube.
Well, so and thinking through from my end of, I spend most of my time doing videos for other people, so a lot of client work. And if I wanted to stay up with YouTube and be timely with everything that's coming out and always having the latest gear and equipment, I'm always like learning it, filming videos about it, what have you. I don't want to take it out on a client shoot because I don't want to mess up because I don't know the latest camera very well. So if I want to do YouTube really well and I want to play the gear game and get the videos out first and have everything latest and greatest, that means I'm either spending a lot of money to get those things, having to build the relationships with the companies to get them in time, and somebody's still going to beat me because they're going to have a better relationship or get the camera early or whatever. So I've kind of tried to switch my focus into, I'll review the thing when I get to it, and I'll spend a lot of time with it. And that way people know that, like, I know the camera well. Like, I'd rather
I'm
have
jealous of that. But you and the two Calebs, and Caleb
it's a
Pike.
different, it's a different game though. Like, I'm putting out 20-minute camera reviews a year after the video or the camera comes out. And then it does a bunch of views versus right away. And just because with the other projects I have, I can't keep up with that. And so
Totally.
And I also want to encourage people that they don't need to buy the latest camera every time.
Exactly.
Because there are new cameras every single week or month from every company. And
it's true.
Just letting other people know. Yeah, letting other people know that, just letting them know that just because you see everyone reviewing the latest cameras is because that's what they have to do to get views and to like grow their channel, because that's what people are searching for. People want to know what the latest thing is. But to serve an audience of creators, it's not necessarily the best thing. To always be buying the new camera, always having the latest. So,
it's true. Very true.
So now I'm in the mindset of, after I sold my Red, I was basically like, well, how long can I keep my 1080p cameras and still run like a profitable business? And for people to be like,
a while.
a long time. And so, I don't know, it's just that kind of mindset thing that I think people need to get over.
It comes back to, I'm running a show that is entertainment featured around gear. That's the mindset that I have now, is like, all those things you said are totally valid to those people. And like, I do want them to know that. And like, but I do hate it when people say to me, it's not about the gear, man. Like, come on. I'm like, to me, it actually is. Like, legitimately, I am seriously only talking about gear. And I had a problem with it because there are a lot of creators who are like, they'll talk about a bunch of gear and then they're like,
oh, but it doesn't matter.
By the way, like, gear just doesn't matter. It's about story. And it's true. That's true. But my story is gear. Is that okay? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, that makes sense, because I think it's always like, gear doesn't matter until it does, or until it enables you to do something.
I like gear. Like, when I was not a YouTuber, all day long I would talk to my wife about gear. I genuinely like it. And that's all I talk about. Is that okay? You know?
I mean, it's okay with me because I do the same thing. And, and my wife doesn't care. She's like, she doesn't care what camera she's using as long as she knows how to use it. And
well, my wife's not a photographer, but she just flat out doesn't care.
So yeah, I guess my wife is a photographer and she does use them. So she just,
exactly.
You know, just doesn't care what the latest thing is. I'll show her, oh, it has eye autofocus and whatever, but
I'm the guy that's been watching Kai since the beginning. I've been watching Philip Bloom since the beginning. You know, even to this day, like last night, we were driving home from this big event. It was late. I was tired. And Olympus announced a camera. I literally watched like 4 videos before 1 o'clock because I like it. You know?
You just want to know. You want to be like, be in the know about it. I mean, it's also part of your job at this point, but you're just genuinely interested.
But I did do that too, if I'm being honest, before I did this. So
what advice would you have for someone that wants to, maybe it's not camera gear, maybe it's some other sort of niche, but they want to grow a channel that's mainly review and like product based? What kind of advice would you have for them?
Man, well, first off, that's a great way to go on YouTube because companies are spending a lot of money finding people.
And people are searching for whatever just came out.
Yeah. YouTube is the number 2 search. And then Google's first. And by the way, Google owns YouTube. So they both kind of work together. If a new product comes out, people are going to want to know about it. And it makes more sense for a company to pay an influencer to talk about it than to do their own ad and make it look slick and forgetful.
Yeah.
So first off, congratulations to you, person who wants to review stuff and not just be a vlogger. And that's a whole challenge in of itself to just build an entertaining vlog channel. I think if you can talk about something you're passionate about, that's a thing, that's a product, there is a full-time living behind that if you're serious about it because of affiliate links, brand deals, things like that. And I just consistency, man. That's it. Just flat out consistency. I had a big conversation with a friend of mine who wants to start YouTube a couple days ago, and he was just giving me his whole game plan. Great game plan. He has tons of talent. And I just had to say, like, dude, the only difference between you and me is I've been making 3 videos a week for the last year and a half. And I didn't have all the answers to the questions you're asking me. And I learned them over time while I was making them. You make a mistake. That's what's beautiful about YouTube. There's no client like notes when you post a video. It's a comment section
that you can delete.
If you want. But it's like, the audio was wrong on that, or the color was a little off there. I'll do better next time. It's not, let's go back and delete that video, fix it, and re-upload it because the color's off or something. Although some people do that. That's fine.
Yeah.
If you do it quickly before the views rack up. But to me, it's all about just moving forward and being okay with good enough. I think there's a lot of filmmakers who can get really meticulous about the lighting or whatever. And at the end of the day, like the platform of YouTube allows for lower production value. But the content itself needs to be high as far as what you're talking about. So yeah, my advice to anybody is to just find a topic, stick to that niche, just kind of become that guy or whatever, or girl, and just kind of go in that lane and be consistent. That's really the key to it for me.
I think that's a perfect place to end it. Thanks for being here, man. Dave. Where can people go to find you online? I'm
on Twitter at Dave Altizer, Altizer, Z as in zebra. And then our YouTube channel is Kinotika, Kinotika.
Perfect. Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks, Caleb.
If you enjoyed this conversation with Dave, definitely go give him a follow on YouTube at the Kinotika channel or on the Dave Mays channel. Both are places where he talks about a lot of camera gear reviews and tutorials and things, so definitely check him out there. If you're interested in SwitchPod, which is the tripod I invented for vloggers, it's live on Kickstarter right now at the time of recording this episode. But in the future, if you go to switchpod.co, that link will either take you to the Kickstarter page now or to a place you can order it in the future. If you haven't done so already, definitely subscribe either on YouTube, where I'm putting out video versions of these right now, or in your podcasting app through iTunes or Spotify or whatever app you're using to do so. Reviews also help, whether that's on, like I said, iTunes or Spotify or wherever. And I appreciate you. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.